Shalom, family. We're going to talk about something that has been a lie for centuries. Now, I know I have done a lot of research about this topic that I'm going to talk about. And if anybody else has any answers that I couldn't find, please DM me and show me a video or show me where you got the information from. So how can the transatlantic slave trade and its ships be true when you cannot find any of the ships? And how can you bring hundreds of people across a country by sea and be alive to be slaves? I don't believe it. So I'm going to talk about it. The ships question. There are very few surviving slave ships. I couldn't find any records. Out of the thousands said to have crossed, only a tiny number of wrecks, like the Clotilda in Alabama, have been found. Wooden ships in salt water rot quickly, because you know they can't build nothing. But still, the absence of physical evidence at the scale they describe raises fair questions. Even historians admit they don't have full records of every ship. Many were undocumented, destroyed, or hidden. Or were they really true? The survival logic. The middle passage is described as brutal, cramming hundreds of people in chains for weeks on end with disease, filth, and starvation. Many would die. The numbers reported, millions upon millions, wouldn't even made survival extremely, happen. If you were packed like that, can you imagine being packed like sausages and still made it over here to work as a slave? Nah. It just doesn't make sense, because it would make that they exaggerated all this. Like, this was made up. It just doesn't sound right. Melanated peoples were already here on the land. This is where I believe the colonizers did find advanced civilizations, tribes, cities, and empires already built here. Spanish, Portuguese, and English explorers wrote of stone cities, organized governments, agriculture, and rich cultures long before importing large numbers of so-called Africans. They called them bywords like Indians, Negroes, colors, natives, and savages, intentionally stripping them of their identity. Some researchers argue that many slaves were actually already here, the original copper-colored melanated peoples of the Americas, simply reclassified under slavery codes. Now, the bywords fulfilled prophecy in Deuteronomy 28, 36, 37, says Yahuwah's people would be scattered, conquered, and given bywords, nicknames, and false identities. Indian, Negro, colored, African American, all examples of bywords. Colonizers erased true tribal names and languages so descendants would forget who they are. They say that in Psalms 83. So which is true? It may not be either or both. Some Africans were indeed brought by ships, records, though incomplete or exist. That's shaky. But many of the melanated peoples enslaved were already here. The indigenous copper-colored tribes that Columbus and others describe. Over time, colonizers merged the two histories to blur the truth, leaving us divided, some labeled African American, some Native American, and some Caribbean. So the spiritual layer, whether brought by ships, enslaved here already, or both, the bigger truth is Yahuwah's people lost their land, names, languages, and inheritance, just as prophecy said. Identity confusion itself is part of the curse. Deuteronomy 28, 64, 68. But Yahuwah is restoring knowledge, memory, and identity in these last days.